It's being called the biggest food crisis since World War II. An estimated 285 million people face starvation.
Thousands of farmers have been taken to the streets of Sri Lanka for weeks to protest a ban on imports of chemical fertilizer.
Protesters clashed with riot police in several cities around the country, burning tires, looting, blocking highways. The rising cost of living is affecting many Peruvians.
For months, tens of thousands of farmers have taken to the streets in India. Protests have at times been violent. More than 200 farmers have died. They began after the government introduced 3 new laws aimed at liberalizing trade. Protesters, largely Sikh, are worried about their livelihood, what will happen to government-controlled markets and minimum price guarantees. Those aren't mentioned in the new laws.
The Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture, led by its chairman Aden Haji, faced the wrath of frustrated farmers who demanded explanation over the shortage of government-subsidized fertilizer.
The protest was dubbed Czech Republic in the first place. Now, protesters highlighted issues being faced by the country.
Now, dozens of mannequins hung from nooses from trees in Paris as the protesters highlighted the issue of rising farmer suicides in France.
In Holland, farmers have taken to the streets and driven their tractors into the capital, The Hague, of Holland, to protest reductions in fertilizer use, an attempt to control the amount of nitrogen oxide in the soil, in livestock waste.
Thousands of farmers have assembled, protested against the government's far-reaching plans to cut nitrogen emissions. They're driving in with their tractors, blowing horns and causing widespread traffic chaos. The Dutch farmers are demanding the scrapping of recently announced plans by the Hague-based government.
Farmers blocked the Pan-American Highway to protest against the threefold increase in fertilizer prices. The government says fertilizers, fuel and grains imports from Russia and Ukraine have shot up because of the war.
25% of the global supply disappearing overnight. Naturally, there will be consequences. Which countries will be the worst hit? Let me show you this list. Egypt is the biggest wheat importer in the world. Turkey is second. Bangladesh is third. Next comes Nigeria, Yemen, Azerbaijan, and the Sudan. Also on this list are Libya, Lebanon, and Tunisia. Do you see the trend? Wheat is not imported by affluent powers. It is bought by the developing world. And if there is a supply gap, these countries will suffer.
Their paddy fields look lush and green, but in reality these farmers are struggling. On May 6 last year, they were forced to go organic overnight, and their production has plummeted since. By buying expensive fertilizer on the black market, he hopes to increase production.
I'm working so hard, but it feels as if it is all for nothing. The government gave us organic fertilizer, but it's not good. With good fertilizer, we got a lot of rice, but now it's just a fraction.
Let's just talk about Afghanistan. 98% of the population do not have enough food to eat.
The wealthiest nation faces a food crisis, according to Nigerian agri-investor Imal Silva, who told us a majority of Nigerians face malnutrition.
Those that are most affected are the majority in the lower and middle class, in the society. Those that are living below a particular level of income would feel the pinch, and that's quite a large majority.
And Beasley warns the world's food crisis could spiral into a political crisis.
You got catastrophe coming to catastrophe, so don't be surprised if you don't see destabilization in several nations over the next 6 to 9 months.
We're facing the biggest food crisis of modern human times, according to Federated Farmers.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is having many ripple effects, but aside from the loss of life, the impact on food supply and costs around the world and here is expected to be one of the worst.
the largest food crisis that's faced modern human existence.
Now, farmers are warning our food supply could take the next major hit.
Experts say the world food supply is now at risk thanks to a shortage in fertilizer. Let's connect the dots. Several reasons are to blame for the shortage. Continuing supply chain issues don't help. But in recent months, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as well as high natural gas prices, are also to blame. Not only is fertilizer hard to come by, but in some cases, prices for ingredients have nearly tripled since the start of the pandemic.
The cost of nitrogen fertilizer is rising while the U.S. economy is taking hits. The high demand is driving food prices up, and farmers are worried about what the future holds for them. Russia and China have also curbed the exports of urea, which is used as a raw material for nitrogen fertilizer production.
Look at this. Up there in yellow, Trudeau has decided to move forward with his cap on nitrogen emissions by reducing fertilizer use, even as provincial agricultural ministers beg him to stop.
John, you mentioned the cost of fertilizers. I know you know the numbers. I don't know if our audience really knows, unless they're a farmer, the impact on the farming community. Look at these numbers. Some fertilizers have gone up 200%. Others have nearly tripled in price.
Farmers are facing a fertilizer shortage, making fertilizer nearly double the cost of what it used to be, according to Young.
So in a normal year, usually about a ton of fertilizer costs us $400 to $500, maybe $600. Some of those have gone up to $1,000. Some are $1,200 right now.
Sales of nitrogen fertilizer were at a global high of $53 billion in 2020. Prices have been 80% higher than before, which is worrying farmers and economists.
The high cost of fertilizer and lime and all of these upfront costs for America's farmers, and we haven't done anything in place to fix that. Well, I tell you right now, farming is the hardest occupation known to man. It never stops. It's 7 days a week, and it's the only occupation, people, that's not Republican, it's not Democrat. That dirt on the ground, that soil that I farm every day, doesn't ask me what color I am, what I look like. It just asks, can I farm and raise that commodity?
Yes, absolutely. So look, global warming is a real problem, but the way it's being exaggerated to such an extent that it's almost extreme partly makes us forget all the other problems in the world. Remember, right now, about 1 billion people are going to go hungry, partly because we don't have enough fertilizer. Fertilizer is made from gas, but the EU is now saying, no, we don't want to help poor people with more fertilizer because it's going to use fossil fuels. That's just immoral.
Where you're looking at food shortages, farmers going out of business, runaway inflation, that will lead to the loss of human life. And if you're okay with that, because, hey, the world's more sustainable, it's greener, then your policies are not just ignorant of history and not just a power grab, but your policies are anti-human.
We will not eat bugs.
And my question today is, have you been to the supermarket lately and looked at these food prices? We have to find a way to invest in infrastructure for farmers and put farmers first and put more small-scale farmers back into business.
We're going to need fossil fuels for a long time to come. So how would you tackle this? What should we be doing here?
We should recognize that even on current promises, if everyone kept their current climate promises, the International Energy Agency estimate we'll still be using more than half of our energy from fossil fuels in 2050. We're not going to, as you say, fix this anytime soon. What we need to do is to dramatically ramp up investment in green energy and R&D, because if we could innovate the next set of clean green energy that would actually be cheaper than fossil fuel, we would have solved global warming. Everyone would switch, not just rich, well-meaning Americans. So there's a lot of people who are realizing the current approach is not working. Maybe we should try another one that'll work better and cost less.